All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Wednesday, March 26th, and this is a night episode, a night release, I guess, if you will, of All In Horns, your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns, right here on All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson. And today's episode, we are going to be going over the I got to change my mic settings. There we go. Yeah,
Whoa.
much better.
Okay, yeah, I should have caught that. But when I first jump in and you're not, it doesn't like change. It's hard to catch.
Yeah, sorry. I was on the laptop. Anyway, now I'm good to go. I'm on the mic. All right, press conference for Sean Miller and his introductory press conference to the Texas Longhorn basketball program. We will dive into that. We're going to kind of give some I was able to finally kind of do a deeper dive into Sean Miller before the last time we went on air. And so for those who are maybe a little skeptical of the hiring, sure, whatever. But I'll say this one thing. The dude is a winner. Point blank, period. That's what he does. So we will get into that. Women's hoops beats Illinois, and so we will dive into the round of 32 game for the women's basketball side of things and who they will be playing in the Sweet 16 in the Tennessee Lady Vols, a historic and prestigious program in their own right. And then we will talk a little bit about that game coming up, and then also we got some football news. We got some spring football going on campus for the University of Texas. And so we got to see Arch Manning kind of throw the ball a little bit. There was a NFL Pro Day in Austin for the Texas Longhorns. And so we will dive into Pro Day stuff. We'll dive into spring football stuff. We'll wrap up the show, talk a little bit about the baseball game last night as they rolled Sam Houston. Not a ton to talk about, but more so about the upcoming schedule for Texas baseball. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into it. Jake, how was the weekend? Able to kind of, breathe a little bit of non-basketball air, kind of get our bearings straight a little bit, got our brains back to working functionally, I think.
Yeah, maybe. You did say weekend, which weekend was basketball. It is more of how's Monday, Tuesday.
How was Monday, Tuesday, and the most of your Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, right now there really is no time to breathe for me, unfortunately. I'm in the midst of hell at work.
You sound better. Look better.
I feel 100%. So there's the good news. Last weekend was not as fun as it should have been for me. Watching all the basketball games, because I started getting a little grumpy, wanting more close games. The grumpiness was definitely exacerbated by not feeling well, not getting good sleep. Because when you can't breathe through your nose, it is not easy to sleep well.
It's not the most enjoyable experience.
No, and so wasn't getting the good REM cycles or whatever. And feeling better now though. Whatever it's called in sleep. I was trying to sound smart. I shouldn't do that. That's a good note to self.
Sounded more like a sex thing to me.
No comment.
Have you been watching too much White Lotus? Sorry for anybody who gets that.
I haven't started that yet, but I apparently need to. But yeah, no, feeling better now, ready and recharged, definitely.
Once you watch White Lotus, you can never go back to unwatching White Lotus. I'll let you know that much.
That could mean good or bad things. It's like once you watch Toxic Avenger, you can never go back to before you watch.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I'm not saying it's a bad show, but it's one of those shows where
it's very popular.
You can't unwatch what you've watched, is all I'm saying.
I think that's the show I told you about that I tried like half an episode. I think it was I watched it at a bad time and I just turned it off.
Yeah. You said you were grumpy watching it or something like that, and you just were. I don't know. It was after a Cowboy game or something like that. You tried watching it.
It was something like that.
And
like,
I'm just not in the mood for
and
this,
it was such a popular, like the show was getting talked about so much. You put those high standards on it and it just didn't catch me right away, but I need to give it a shot.
So anyway, Jake, Sean Miller was introduced as the Texas Longhorns basketball coach, had a press conference, talked about it a little bit. We kind of went through some of the initial things, but one thing I kind of want to point out to people is that he has a 71 career winning percentage throughout his head coaching career. He's 22-13 in March Madness. So that just means making March Madness that many times as a head coach is also extremely impressive, in my opinion. He overachieved at Xavier, had the third highest winning percentage in program history, second highest tournament winning percentage at Xavier, led them to 2 Sweet 16s and an Elite Eight appearance in his first stint there. A lot of people have been throwing, at least on Twitter, what he's done in the last 3 years at Xavier, when people forget what he did at his first 4 or 5 years at Xavier as that program. But yeah, took him to the Elite Eight, furthest they'd ever been in program history, matched that. They've gone, I think, 2 other times to the Elite Eight. And so, and he's one of those times that he's taken them that far. And so, yeah, I would say, Jake, that's probably an overachievement in terms of the caliber of talent that they get. Now, yes, they are a basketball school. They're a Big East school. Sure. It's all fine and dandy, but sometimes whenever a school such as Texas provides you the resources, although basketball might be second, even third tier in the program compared to football and baseball. Yeah, it still doesn't matter whenever the resources are going to be allocated to your program to support you more so than you got at Xavier and even at Arizona, considering there was no NIL at the time when he was at Arizona.
Yeah, maybe there was some NIL going on at Arizona at the time, but Sean Miller was not found guilty on any of that stuff.
Correct.
So,
he was found of no wrongdoings.
Yes, no wrongdoings. There we go. But yeah, I mean, I really like the hire, and I said that immediately. This was one of the names you and I both talked about being a name we would support. The names that people would have wanted that are disappointed in this hire, they wanted unrealistic hires for what this basketball program was for what the athletic department was going to be able to do for this hire.
Yeah.
They had to pay out almost a $6 million buyout in Rodney Terry. This is not football. That is a substantial buyout. And then the names that were getting thrown around were all names that would have required 10, 15, $20 million buyouts, which was just, that wasn't going to happen with this hire. Sean Miller, what I love about him is I love the offensive style that he runs. And that is what I wanted in hiring a coach that has a good offensive system. He does. And he was overachieving at Xavier these last 3 years, or at least 2 out of the 3 years for sure, because they do not have a good NIL system. They are very behind in the Big East in NIL. They were probably outperforming what they should have been able to do. He's a very good recruiter, and he's never had a shot at a program like this. Now, Arizona is a good basketball program. He did have a lot of success there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of success. The only years that they didn't have success was right at the start, which then they got progressively better as he was there. And then when they were under an investigation, which was basically a death sentence for recruiting at that
the amount
time.
of transfers that they had and the amount of recruits that flipped and decided not to go to Arizona just in spite of the investigation happening at the time, really set that program back a few years during his last couple years as his tenured there. But yeah, Jake, you can go down the list. He had 3 Atlantic 10 championships with Xavier at Arizona. He was 5-time Pac-12 regular champion, 3-time tournament champion in the Pac-12. And so he has performed and proved himself as a winning coach at a low-level school as well as a high-level school. And I would say an Arizona program that probably has more scrutiny from its fan base on its basketball program than maybe the Texas fan base. Is that a fair assumption? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's tough because Texas is
such a brand. It's just
it's great, and just I'm so plugged into Texas that it seems like every time any sport loses, I saw someone tweet after the first LSU game that, well, it turns out we only have 2 good teams in the athletic department, football and volleyball, and it was like, what?
Yeah,
but I mean, look, Sean Miller,
softball, yeah.
Sean Miller is 58th all time in win percentage as a head coach. He's ahead of Tom Izzo, Billy Donovan, Bobby Knight, just Will Wade, just another popular name and that was maybe the only name out there that I would have been a little more excited about. But I don't have a problem with ending up on Sean Miller. It doesn't feel like a plan B to me because I know Chris Del Conte wanted him. He's more of a proven commodity at bigger schools. I mean, Will Wade was good at LSU, but did he even win a tournament game there or go to the Sweet 16?
Never looked up. Definitely didn't go to the Sweet 16.
And so I think a lot of people overlook just how successful Sean Miller has been as a coach. And people go, well, has it been to a Final Four? And it's like, well, what are you expecting from Texas basketball? And what coach were you going to hire that has been to a Final Four? You can go hire Shaka Smart. He's been to a Final Four.
Yeah.
I've more trust in Sean Miller getting over that hump of the Elite Eight that he hasn't gotten over yet at Texas than I do over just getting a coach just because he's been further. One run doesn't define anything. What to me defines more is sustained success. And that's one thing Sean Miller has definitely had.
One thing that I overlooked, Jake, as a Longhorn fan, just kind of growing up. I mean, I think it was 98 when Rick Barnes took over. So I was 4 years old whenever he took over the basketball program. And he coached up until, what was it, 2014, something along those lines. The amount of consistent success that Rick Barnes had at the University of Texas of getting Texas in the tournament as a, whether that be an 8 seed or higher, and competing within the Big 12 as, as Big 12 champions or whatever, and kind of staying in that upper tier of the conference. That's what I'm looking for out of Sean Miller at this point. Now, does CDC, is his standard, the get to the tournament, lose in the first couple of rounds, and be done with it year in, year out on a regular basis? No, his goal ultimately is to win national championships. That's what Chris Del Conte has continually and consistently preached in every single hire, is that we're not here just to be, put into a tournament or to get recognition for a season. No, we're here to have sustained success and win a national championship in every program: softball, baseball, basketball, volleyball, women's hoops, football, you name it. And he wouldn't bring in a Sean Miller if he didn't believe that, given Texas's stature as an NIL powerhouse in whatever sport you want to talk about, a transfer portal destination for outside talent to come in and say, Austin, Texas is a great place to be. Texas is a great state to live in, this, that, and the other. It's a great atmosphere, great environment to be in. He understands that all of those things are advantages to get talent to Texas. He just is finding the coaches to mold that talent and get that talent at a national championship winning level. And I believe that he believes Sean Miller is more than capable than doing that. He's done it with Vic Schaefer. He's done it with Schlossnagle. He's done it with Steve Sarkisian. And so it's just one hire after the other during his tenure that I completely have faith in whatever Chris Del Conte wants to do. I'm all for it.
And let's not forget, a lot of the fan base doubted Steve Sarkisian as a hire because he didn't have great success as a head coach previously. Right when he was starting to roll on maybe some success as a head coach at USC, that's when he had his personal problems. And then he won a national championship as an offensive coordinator, but to a Longhorn fan on X Everything app, that doesn't mean much.
Yeah.
At least when it comes to being a head coach. I trust Chris Del Conte more than I trust just about anyone. Because at the end of the day, every hire that he has made, that is a hire that, because I don't consider the Rodney Terry a hire he necessarily made. And I know there's some people who disagree with me who go, he could have chose not to hire him then and there. It's just not true.
I think the blowback on not hiring Rodney Terry after that season would have been,
from a recruiting perspective, from a retainment perspective, from an optics perspective, it would have just been horrible.
Yeah.
For the school, for him, it would have been not worth the blowback. Having the 3 years we did with Rodney Terry, or I guess 2 years, was worth that one run. Sure. And in bringing him, because at the end of the day, they still made the tournament in his 2 years. They didn't go to the depths of hell. I mean, whether you consider the first four making the tournament or not, I think I can get with either side. We saw them play in a game on
March. Wikipedia. It says 2025. Just saying.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say it's making the tournament. It's just the bare minimum, and it doesn't mean anything for actual success, but still, I'm just saying it's not like we fell into the pits of hell with them.
we're not playing in the Crown this year or the NIT or any of these other postseason tournaments that they've made up and decided to
Now the
call
year
it
was miserable. I'm not going to debate that. The actual like watching the basketball in the season was not fun.
It was not good basketball, but we did have Trey Johnson, and that was fun. Jake, throughout his press conference, made some notes. Was there anything that jumped out to you that you just were like, music to my ears? That's what I've been waiting to hear.
When he talks about offense and he just talks about off-ball movement, moving the ball around, taking having a good 3-point shooting team, focusing on threes and getting to the free throw line, which is just how you win in today's basketball. And I mean, we saw that. I mean, Xavier systemically looked like a far superior team to Texas. Texas's talent just kept them in that game.
He mentioned the first 4 game this year in that press conference, and he said, as a team, when we played against Texas, we made every shot we possibly we just shot really, really well. In the next round against Illinois, they shot really well and they made everything. That's just how the game works, And so, but yeah, it was to me, Jake. One thing that really stood out was getting the Moody Center back and just making that a true advantage, a home court advantage when it comes to your student section, when it comes to the support of the fans. When a Kentucky comes into the Moody Center, that they're a little intimidated. When an Auburn comes in, Texas plays their best game and can knock Auburn off a little bit, or Tennessee, or insert name here. That it's a true advantage to have that home court advantage, and then also just bringing in former players, alumni, and making sure that they know it's their program. A lot of these things to me sounded a lot like what Sark built with the football program.
Yeah. And for Sean Miller, he also talked about this kind of feeling like his last ride, and not necessarily meaning he's going to retire soon. He's still pretty young, but just meaning this needs to be his final job, as far as it being a long-term job, a place he can have all the success he wants to have. And it feels like this is his big opportunity to make it or break it, per se. Even though you could say he's already made it as a coach, but just when it comes to trying to win a national title, being at a big time brand and program, this is his chance to really make it on that side of things, and maybe become a legendary coach and not just a really good coach.
Right.
And I like the things he said in his press conference. A press conference is a press conference. It doesn't win basketball games. How good they're going to be next year, we have no idea. We don't know what the roster is going to be. I know Devin Pryor's entering the transfer portal. I don't think that's a huge loss. And it's going to be interesting to see who he goes after trying to retain. I imagine Chendall Weaver's number 1 on that list. I know he said in his press conference he would tell Trey Johnson to go pro. So there was no doubt there, but just anyone who's holding out hope, lose that hope.
Yeah.
And then just who he's able to bring in from the recruiting portal, from Xavier, from other places, and kind of start to put together a roster to try to compete next year.
Over 1,000 scholarship athletes enter the transfer portal on Sunday in basketball. I think I saw a number of 22.7% of scholarship athletes entered the transfer portal on Sunday for basketball. It's
bad. And the NCAA's got it. Someone's got to do something about it, because a lot of these kids enter. What's not talked about, we've talked about this with football, is all the amount of kids who enter the portal and don't find a new home.
Right.
And then that's where the problem, it's like you're trying to enter the portal to make money. Don't forget you're getting to go to college for free.
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous privilege.
And when you don't find a home, then you don't go to another university. And then now you're just, now you're losing out on an education as well. Or
you're just going down to like a D2, and you're worse off than you were to begin with if you just stuck it out.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, look at what the tournament looks like with every Sweet 16 team. I think there were Duke, Michigan State, Purdue. That may be the only 3 teams that had more than 4 players that were recruited to that school to play basketball that's currently starting on their starting 5.
Yeah. In basketball, high school recruiting is going to be secondary to transfer
The
portal.
transfer portal.
I will say I don't agree with the take that it means there's never going to be upsets again, because this is the only year we've seen in the
It's an
NIL
outlier.
era where there hasn't been a ton of upsets.
Yeah, it's an outlier.
I don't understand how we could just watch NC State go to a Final Four and watch all these low seeds win a year ago and now go, see, NIL killed basketball. What?
Now, you could also flip it on the other side of, well, what happens whenever the players that were recruited to these schools a year ago are now in the transfer portal and playing at the lower level schools, and someone's got to fill those roster spots. It's not like they're just getting D2 players to play for these, 14, 15 seeded teams. No, it's Alabama players that
You're
were
going to get a
recruited.
4-star player with a chip on their shoulder.
That's exactly what it is. So I don't agree with the take of that it's ruining March Madness. I do agree with the fact that it's getting out of hand. I mean, the amount of players that have entered the transfer portal in basketball and that aren't going to find a home is going to be staggering. But we'll see, and we'll keep everybody updated. I haven't looked too much into, obviously, Sean Miller just walked through the door. I'm sure he's got a game plan. I'm sure he's got a staff that he needs to hire on, and he's got things that he's got to do before just finding.
He's not
his
going to be
full
getting
roster.
much sleep for a little while.
He's got a lot of work to do ahead of him. A lot of work to do. So, Jake, let's go ahead, jump into women's hoops. They beat Illinois 65-48. Booker had 20 and 6. Win and Tonda had 19 and 6. Taylor Jones with 12 and 5. Those were your three leading players. Taylor Jones is just an absolute stud, just a mainstay. I feel like she averages 12 and 5, just a guaranteed double-digit player with at least 5 or more rebounds. But really outplayed this Illinois team from start to finish. Really had no issues with this team by any means. And then we'll move on and play a very good Tennessee team that has a lot of history with that program in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I mean, for the round of 32, they took care of business as they should have at home. Now it starts. Tennessee's a good team, and a team they only beat by 4 in the regular season. It's not going to be, this game's not at home. Neutral sites start now in the ladies tournament. And it's a big game, because if they lose in the Sweet 16, this year would feel, I mean, anything less than the Final Four would make this year feel like a disappointment as far as the tournament goes. So yeah, I mean, this is where it starts to get real. I didn't get to watch much of Monday's game. I was just too busy at work and in meetings, and it was during work time, so I just didn't get to watch much. But I will be tuned in and watching closely for this Tennessee game, because this is where it starts.
Well, and then Jake, on the same bracket to meet up in the Elite Eight, you've got Notre Dame and TCU. I think you obviously lost to Notre Dame on the road early in the season in non-conference play in an overtime game, but it doesn't get any easier than this. And then you got Haley Van Lith at TCU and doing something that TCU I don't think has ever done as a women's program. And making it this far to the Sweet 16. I think it's their first Sweet 16 appearance in program history, I believe.
It's definitely their highest seed. I know
highest seed. Maybe that's what it was. Highest seed as a 2 seed. But either way, so another really good game, an interesting game. Notre Dame TCU. Put that on your calendar to also watch that game. Also included obviously Texas and Tennessee. But yeah, Jake, like you said, Texas beat this Tennessee team 80-76 back in January. Now, a lot has changed since then. Tennessee did not end their season off very well. I think they lost 3 of their last 4 games in the regular season, and then including the SEC tournament. But
that's the exact type of team that can be dangerous at this point.
The fact that they made it to the Sweet 16 proves to me that they can be a dangerous team. So,
the road to the Final Four is tough. You got to beat a good Tennessee team, and then you got to beat either a team you lost to already or a team that is having their best season in school history.
And then in the Final Four, South Carolina. Now, I've also got, well, because I don't believe South Carolina is going to lose up until that point. But bad news, Juju Watkins, fan of hers. That's terrible to see, an ACL injury in March Madness, and that's probably going to negate the majority of next season for her as well. And so that's a real bummer for that USC program. Just wanted to throw that out there. We don't have to talk too much about it.
No, it sucks. I mean, injuries suck to see at any point, but when it happens in the March Madness tournament, men or women,
especially
it
as like a marquee player. I mean, she is one of
yeah,
the
I mean,
top 2 to 3 players in the entire country.
their title odds went from I think it was like 6-1 or 7-1 to 25-1. That is incredible how much she impacts that for
Yeah,
that team. But I mean, without her, yeah, I mean that they're probably on up. They're only a 1.5 favorite over Kansas State, and Kansas State's a 5 seed. The crazy that may not sound like, well, that's not that crazy. Well, it is because Texas is 8.5 point favorites. UConn over Oklahoma, that's 2 against a 3. UConn's 14.5 point favorites on that. Notre Dame is 6.5 point favorites on TCU. So I think the smallest spread by far is this game.
Yep.
And if she was in, they would probably be a 9.5, 10.5
Sure.
plus point favorite.
I mean, it's like losing Madison Booker. I mean, that's who it would be like. I mean,
or if Texas was better in men's basketball, then lost Trey Johnson. I mean, it is that level of loss.
It's Duke losing Cooper Flagg for the rest of the season, but maybe not Duke.
I don't know. They looked really good, but it was the ACC tournament, which as we have seen is garbage.
Yeah. But anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. UConn looks like a juggernaut. They look like the hottest team in the country right now.
That's who my pick was to win the national title. Was UConn.
I have Texas taking on I think UCLA, I believe, in my championship, and I have Texas winning that game. But I'm not going to not pick Texas as a 1 seed at best season.
It hurts that the one game I saw of UConn this year was just absolutely thrashing South Carolina at South Carolina.
Just an annihilation,
and just winning all their games down the stretch. They did lose to Tennessee at Tennessee, ironically 80-76.
That's a bit of a weird, that's
same score as Texas beat Tennessee, but Paige Bueckers probably the best player in college basketball, and it feels like them getting hot, being a 2 seed, and they haven't won in what feels like a long time for them. But I would love for Texas to. I just looked at their road and I was like, it's a brutal death road.
Yeah, it's a brutal road.
They win the national title, it'll be one of the hardest roads I've seen from a 1 seed.
Yeah. I mean, the top tier women's programs this year have been better than what they've been, I think, in the last maybe 5 to 10 years on the women's side of things. In terms of the top 5 to 6 teams, there's a legit 5 to 6 teams that could win this whole thing.
You don't have just South Carolina going undefeated this year. You have UConn at 33-3, who went 18-0 in conference.
As a 2 seed.
Yeah, as a 2 seed. You have UCLA. You have obviously USC, probably not anymore, unfortunately, but was definitely a threat to win the national title. You have Texas, you have a TCU and a Notre Dame. I would still throw Notre Dame in there as a team that has the potential to. You have South Carolina. You have, which by the way, Duke, North Carolina, 2-3 matchup in the Sweet 16. That should be a fun one. But yeah, I mean, just an absolutely loaded top end of the bracket. I think the women's tournament, I didn't watch a ton of the first 2 rounds. I was so brain dead.
So this is going to sound bad, but for the women's tournament, I start watching at the Sweet 16. You don't have as many upsets. A lot of the first round games are lopsided. You did have a good overtime game with K-State, and I can't remember who they went to overtime with in the round of 32, but it was a close game, good game, but that was probably game of the tournament so far on the women's side, I would say. So, but yeah, I start really getting into the Sweet 16 and on when it comes to the women's bracket. So, Jake, anything else? Texas plays Tennessee, Sweet 16, Saturday at 2:30. So put it on your to-watch list, because good thing about that is that the men's games won't start until later in the day.
Game of the tournament for the women's side and game of both tournaments was Maryland, Alabama, which Maryland came storming back from down like 20 in the second half. Took it to overtime, went to double overtime, beat Alabama. Alabama, I think her last name was Barker. She scored 45 points in the loss. 45 points.
Maryland has a game of the tournament in both the men's and the women's.
I know, right? It was 111 to 108. Yeah, I'm pulling up the box score. 111 to 108 in 2 overtimes.
Nice.
Where Maryland had to come back. They were down by at least 9 in the fourth. And I know they were down like 15, 16 in this late in the third quarter, started their comeback in the third, finished it in the fourth, and managed to come back and win it. And you had a 45 point performance from Sarah Ashley Barker, which was a very fun game.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right, Jake, quick football news before we get into the men's side of the bracket, a little bit of a Sweet 16 preview, maybe. Brief talk on the Sam Houston baseball game for the men's. Again, run ruled them in by the 7th inning. However, football news, pro day, Jake, was yesterday. 21 Texas Longhorns participated in that pro day, all the way from Bill Norton to Quinn Ewers and everything in between. And so reports are, Jake, that Jaden Blue ran a faster 40 than what he did in the combine. I think that only ups his stock moving into late April. Quinn Ewers threw 3 incomplete passes, I think, on 59 attempts, something along that. And he looked really good. Again, I think scouts are going to love him in shorts, and that's what he looked like. He performed very well as well. I think Isaiah Bond bumped up his 40 a little bit, but it was nothing, that just like blew the doors off of what he said he was going to compete with Xavier Worthy's 40 time.
Yeah, the big story was Jaden Blue. Quinn Ewers, we both have expected his draft stock to only rise as people look at him in the combine and look at him in a pro day situation. Jaden Blue is story of the day, running in the 4.2s, and it coming out, and it seems like it's just a fact that he had at least a partially torn groin at the combine, and still ran a pretty good time. Not a great time, and definitely not great for him. But a pretty decent time at the least. And if that's what he ran at the Texas Pro Day, which it seems like it is, and they're saying, and he's saying that he did have a partially torn groin, it's probably going to make some teams second guess any evaluations on him from the combine. Because that's more the 40 you would have expected from him anyways. So I feel like there's probably truth to that.
Yeah, and there was at least a representative, I think, from the NFL from just about every team. Now, in terms of head coaches, I want to say there were 5 head coaches that were present at the pro day, and that's always a big deal, especially if you get a GM or a head coach that participates. Those are the ones that are really looking to draft somebody from this Texas program. Who that is, we don't know, but they're typically there to watch 1 or 2 guys that really jumps out on the page from them. But yeah, to have that many head coaches, and then typically, like I said, you're going to at least have a scout or somebody represented at a Texas Pro Day from just about any franchise in the NFL.
Yeah, and just how nice it is. How nice is it to see that many players at a pro day? A lot of them, a vast majority of them, have a very good shot of being drafted. Which
is insane to think about to where we were 5 years ago.
Yeah. And the fact that there was a lot last year this is year 2 of Texas just having a ton of guys back in the draft. And, there being all the talk of is Texas losing too much to be good next year? We had this talk last year. Obviously they're losing a lot in the offensive line. That's the big area, but it's just
a good
awesome
problem to have.
Yeah. It's a great problem to have. It's a problem I welcome, because it was just embarrassing to never see any Texas players drafted for 10 plus years.
Dude, to see Texas A&M have guys being drafted in the first round on a regular basis, whether that be a Jake Matthews or a Myles Garrett or, whoever offensive lineman wise that they would have getting drafted in the first round, and then so on and so forth throughout the draft. It was just like between Texas A&M and Oklahoma guys, and then you see Ohio State doing what they're doing. You're just like, where are we? Where are our players? Like, there's obviously a huge talent gap of development between being recruited and to getting to the NFL. And so, but yeah, no, Jay, like you said, it's a great problem to have. Spring ball also getting going.
And sorry, I just want to add one more point onto what you said there. also, we would see so many guys get drafted in the 6th, 7th round that we knew were really talented, but never were good at Texas.
Poona
And then
Ford.
they'd be really good in the pros, or at least way better than they ever were at Texas.
Yep.
And that was all a sign of terrible talent development. Now it's the exact opposite. You have guys being studs
Charles
at Texas.
Omenihu, a Poona Ford, those types of players. That
Poona Ford is like who comes first to mind,
Yeah.
especially when Jason Kelsey said that was like the guy who gave him the most problems ever in his career. And it's like,
he hated like
God.
the short little guys that could get underneath.
Had
him.
a high motor. I mean,
Yeah.
those dudes are annoying
Yeah.
to block. Those little high motor, never give up. Yeah.
All right, Jake. And now spring ball has started. Keep your eye on wide receiver Parker Livingston. I think that he's already shown up a couple of highlight reel plays in the first couple of practices. But the big number of the day is number 16, throwing the pigskin around. Arch Manning is going to steal the show in just about everything he does. But yeah, it's officially Arch Manning time. And then another big number out there was a change in a number from Ryan Wingo. He will go from number 5 to number 1.
Yeah. Colin Simmons and Ryan Wingo, number 1 for next year. So have a very fun set of number 1s.
Buy your number 1 jersey now and just go to the game. And
so now you buy it with the players on it, but
Yeah.
maybe you buy a number 1 and you just put Wingo /
or just like women's wingmans or Simgo.
I like Simgo. There we go. That's a good one. But yeah, no, it's exciting to start seeing reports. I'm very interested to see what information we get out there from this spring. It's obviously a lot different with it being more of an OTA style. But I'm excited to hear how, Justice Terry looks when you get the pads on, how Arch is looking, obviously.
Yeah.
And then obviously for me, I want to hear how the offensive line looks.
Right.
I want to hear that the run blocking looks like it's taken a step up.
I feel like that's going to be a little, I don't know, Jake, you tell me. When it comes to like a training camp or something, it's hard for an offensive lineman and defensive lineman to just take reps off because those guys are going at it trying to win a spot, and you kind of have to go 100% on the offense and defensive line in practice.
Yeah, I mean, granted, I've never played at a level like Texas, obviously.
Sure.
But I don't feel like true. I don't feel like you can take plays off as an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman because
you're going to lose your spot if you just
you're going to lose your spot. You're also going to end up looking really stupid because you're going to go against someone who's not. And with how competitive just Texas is right now, especially at those positions, that's just not something I'm worried about with Texas at any position, but especially those. And it's like playing hockey. If you take a possession off or a play off, you're going to get your butt whipped. And it's going to look embarrassing, and it's probably going to hurt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's probably not going to feel very good either. But yeah, no, those are some things that we're looking forward to, and eager to hear the reports of media people that are actually at practice, attending practices, covering practices. And I'm curious too, Jake, with it kind of being an OTA style, if we're going to have Sark give a little bit more to the media in terms of like, maybe not press conferences, but at least just a little interview here and there. Probably not. Yeah,
probably not.
Probably
I think
right.
all this stuff we're going to get, maybe they'll give a little bit more info to the inside sources, and we'll be scouring all of those and trying to keep up and give some updates. But yeah, I don't think Sark's he's pretty open with the press as far as Texas coaches go. I don't think he's going to get any more open than he already is. But
yeah,
I am excited just to see how it goes. I'm sure they're going to have, I do think this will allow them to have more internal scrimmages and more good on good. I think they would avoid a lot of one-on-ones, not like one-on-one, but the ones-on-ones in the prior spring format, because you want to have people healthy and be able to put on a good show for the fans, because otherwise you're going to get ridiculed to hell, especially at a place like Texas. So I imagine this will amp up the intensity a little bit in some of these padded practices.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for a couple of fights like you get in the NFL training camp. I think it's always good for a team to kind of just blow off some steam, just hitting each other.
Now it'll depend how many you have to have enough padded practices.
Yeah.
You don't want them fighting padded practice one.
No. Yeah, I'm talking like,
once you're starting to not like each other and you're tired of just hitting each other,
the same people over and over again. Yeah.
I'd be curious, and it probably can't happen because you still do technically have classes, believe it or not. But I'd be curious to see if ever, I know Deion Sanders talked about at Colorado wanting to bring in another school to scrimmage.
That's
for
really
springs. And that's something I've thought about is that something that could happen out of Texas eventually?
Well, Jake, could you bring in UTSA? Like, they're not that far away from you, like, can you bring in, another school that's somewhat local, even if it's a community college or a JUCO
practice
college
squad like Texas Tech. I mean,
Deion's probably thinking like Colorado, maybe not Colorado State. There's a rivalry there that you probably don't want to get those teams together, but he's probably thinking of another high-end school to bring in. I'm thinking more so the lines of, you get your local JUCO and you get their guys out there and you just run it doesn't have to be a hardcore scrimmage, but you also don't want those guys trying to prove themselves.
You also don't want those guys getting hurt because they're going against just bigger, stronger humans.
Well,
UTSA is a good example, I think.
You don't want them to hurt your players is my thing in terms of like, you don't want them to be, coming in, trying to prove themselves to Coach Sark about getting a transfer or something along those lines. And then they just go too hard, too above and beyond.
It's not something I think's imminent. I'll put it that way, but it will be interesting to see as kind of teams figure out this new era of spring style football. Cause a lot of teams are going to this format. I think it's only a matter of time before every major team is in this format. If it's going to kind of turn into something else, where they have a way to scrimmage another team or have a practice against another team or what kind of, where it kind of goes from here. Cause I imagine there's going to be tweaks and changes to improve it, because this is basically the start of this for the first time ever happening like this.
Right. All right, Jake. Well, let's go ahead and let's talk a little bit about the baseball game. Run ruled Sam Houston 13-3 in 7 innings. Jalen Flores with 4 RBIs led the team with 4 RBIs. Ethan Mendoza had 3 runs scored at 4 at-bats. It was just an overall good performance, especially from the top of the lineup. Whenever you've got Mendoza, Bayu, Flores, Galvan has been a home run machine. It feels like every time he's at bat, he's got a chance to knock one out of the park. But yeah, Texas took care of a Sam Houston team that they were supposed to take care of.
Yeah, the probably number 1, number 2 storylines of this game. Number 1, Jonah Williams had an at bat. He did strike out. That tweeted, "I'll be back." But he's been injured. That's why he hasn't been playing. Obviously, 5-star recruit for football, one of the top recruits in the country for baseball. A lot of buzz around him. I know Schlossnagle said he's primarily been with baseball, been sitting in some Texas meetings. But as long as there's a plan for him to contribute in baseball, he'll focus on baseball during this baseball season. And he said that there is a plan for that. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what more opportunities he gets from here. Does he get any this weekend at Missouri? Then Flores' bat just heating up. They need some of these bats on the back end of the lineup to start heating up. And then Flores, not necessarily a back end hitter, but still a guy that's been kind of hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of potential there for him to really get a hot streak going. And his bat's been steadily, he started the year horribly. It's been slowly heating up as the year's gone on.
And he's a great fielder, so it's not like you're going to be able to take him out of the shortstop position.
All the outfield is great at fielding. Some of the hitting has been inconsistent from the outfield.
Sure. All right, Jake. And then you want to talk a little Sweet 16, little preview for Thursday?
Yeah, dude. There's only 4 games, so we can fit in some predictions real quick. I think
it doesn't need to be extensive. Just a little something to wet the whistle.
Yeah, only 4 games, and yet we still have a game starting at 9:09 p.m. Why?
And it's 2 teams that are within the central time zone. So that really doesn't make sense to me with Texas Tech and Arkansas. So that really blows my mind as to why those 2 teams. Anyway, First game that kicked us off at a 6 o'clock evening game, BYU Alabama. Jake, I think this might be game of the Sweet 16. I might go ahead and call this might be the best game of the Sweet 16 in the first game that we get on Thursday.
It has all the potential to be. The problem is it does have potential for one team not to shoot well and then just to get absolutely blasted.
I think Alabama's defense is too poor. I think it would actually have to be Bama would have a higher chance of getting blown out by BYU than the other way around. I think because of Bama's defense being so bad that BYU is going to be able to score.
Yeah, I think so, but there's always a risk in college basketball, especially with a team like BYU. You fall in love with the jump shot and it doesn't fall, and it doesn't matter if you're open.
March Madness. Like the tournament's not over. People have deemed this one of the worst tournaments ever.
People deem that, but it's the most watched tournament in like 25 years.
And so it's only going to get more because we have the best teams now remaining in the Sweet 16, like the actual best teams remaining in the Sweet 16. What if this Sweet 16 is one of the best Sweet 16s we've ever seen moving into the Elite Eight and we get buzzer beaters and overtimes and great games? That would make up for last weekend's kind of flop, would it not?
Well, I think we're going to have a lot of really good games. I don't know how many there'll be in the Sweet 16, but I have no doubt that we're going to have plenty of really good games to finish out this tournament. People who say the tournament's dead are just dramatic, and also people who are still watching every game. I mean, again, highest ratings for the second round.
Yeah.
In 20, I think it was like 25 years. Guess what? There was no upsets in the first round, and that's when everyone started saying the tournament sucked. Yet more people watched it.
Well, bigger fan bases were still in the tournament.
Well, yeah, and just there's more enticing games because a lot of people believe it or not, a lot of people will not tune in to watch the 15 seed play in the second round because they think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, well,
most of the time it is.
Well, and they're casuals and they don't know anybody on the team or they don't know the program or whatever, and that's perfectly fine. That's what these tournaments are for. But yeah, Jake, I think BYU Alabama. I think it's going to be the highest scoring Sweet 16 game. I also think it might be we might be in store for just a great blowout, or not a blowout, but just a great high scoring type game.
What's the over under line, Tanner? Without looking,
I'm not going to look. Over under, man, I'm going to say 170.
175.5.
Dang, I'm good. Okay,
that's pretty. So your model's telling you should bet the under. I'm not a coward. I am absolutely betting the over.
I'll bet the over.
Even though both teams are going to have to score about 90 for this over to hit.
Yeah.
You can't not ride this over.
You have to. It just based on everything that you've seen up to this point, you have to.
From both of these teams specifically as well.
Yeah, right.
Alabama 5.5 point favorites. Does that surprise you? And who do you have winning?
Does 5.5 surprise me? Actually, maybe a little bit. I would think it would actually be closer to like the 3.5 mark, to be honest. I'm okay with Bama being the favorites on the spread. But I would think that it would be closer to 3.5, to be honest. And then I'm gonna take BYU to win this thing outright, Jake. I really am. I'm gonna say 88-80.
I really want to take BYU to win this, and they did end the year really well. So man, it's tough. Their only loss down the stretch was to Houston. They did get blown out in that game. Alabama is a completely different style team than Houston. I'm going to go with BYU just because the problem is I can definitely see Alabama winning this. I just think Alabama's defense is such a liability, and BYU, if they can just get some stops.
They played a really bad first half against Robert Morris. And not only that, then they kind of turn around.
That doesn't mean anything for this game.
It doesn't. But man, they turn around. They didn't look all that great in the second round game. And I'm trying to think of who they played. St. Mary. St. Mary is a team that likes to slow you down, but they kind of hung in there and weren't able to put them away, I guess, the way I wanted them to put them away. I guess is more so my issue, but you're right. It doesn't really matter in a game like this. All right, Maryland, Florida. I think this is going to be another great game. Maryland taking on Florida. Florida with a knockout, drag out fight. These two teams played the best round of 32 games between Colorado State and Maryland, and then also Florida and UConn. Great games to lead up to this matchup. Man, I just think Florida can outrun them. I just think that they're going to be able to outrun them, and they're going to wear out the starting five. And I think the depth of Florida is going to win them this game. And if they don't utilize the bench points and keeping fresh legs out there, it's a coaching problem.
Yeah, I would love to take Maryland to win this game. I just in no way, shape, or form see them winning this game. I'd pick them to win against other teams in the Sweet 16, but I just think Florida is going to outrun them, like you said. In the second half, they pull away and they end up covering the 6.5 point spread. I think they'll win by about 10 to 12 points.
I'm going to make a prediction that Maryland leads by 8 at halftime.
Wow.
And then Florida, I think Florida ends up winning this game by about 8 or 9.
I think it'll be about tied at halftime, and then Florida ends up winning by about 10 to 12 points.
Yeah. But yeah, I've got Florida as my national champion. They've given me no reason not to ride with them. So, Duke, Arizona, Jake, I think I would have rather seen Oregon play this Duke team. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But I still think Duke's going to kind of run through Arizona. I don't think that this is going to be a particularly great, exciting game. Could definitely easily be wrong though.
Yeah, I hope Arizona does prove us wrong. I don't see it happening. Duke's already played Arizona once this year. It was at Arizona, and they won by 14 points. Now, granted, Arizona wasn't playing great then. They really didn't play that well in non-conference play. They really started going in conference play. But yeah, I think this game might be really ugly, to be honest. I think this could end up being a 20-point worst game of the Sweet 16. Hope I'm wrong. Hope Arizona proves that wrong. I just don't think they have the firepower to compete with Duke, especially with how Duke is playing right now.
Duke is just so freaking good. Arkansas, the only double-digit seed that made it to the Sweet 16, Arkansas.
Our underdog, our pesky underdog
with Calipari at the helm. I think Calipari thrives as an underdog. He did his best work at Memphis, in my opinion. Arkansas, Texas Tech. That's going to be the 9:00 game. And Jake, this game I've kind of gone back and forth with because Arkansas is playing pretty dang good basketball. I mean,
they have been for a while. Minus that one South Carolina game.
Yeah.
South Carolina got oddly hot at the end of the season.
And Texas Tech is a team that I can see easily laying an egg and just putting up a dud. I've got Texas Tech winning this game on my bracket. I've got them losing to Florida in my Elite Eight. So I'm going to just stick with it. I'm just going to ride with Tech just for the simple fact that that's what I have on my bracket. Just going to ride with it.
Well, I have St. John's beating Drake in this game. Worst part of the bracket for me by far. That didn't work out. That didn't work out as
you had a
planned.
double-digit seed in this game.
Yeah, and I Drake did win their first round game, which was one of the bigger upsets of the first round. Yeah. I think Arkansas is going to win. I think they're playing really good basketball right now.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they
I wasn't overly impressed by Tech against Drake, even though they played what I thought was a better brand of basketball. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against Arkansas. So really it's going to come down to does Tech shoot lights out from 3-point?
Yeah.
And if they do, they'll probably win. And if they don't, they'll probably lose. It's a coin flip. I dislike Tech more than I dislike Arkansas, so that coin landed on the Razorbacks winning.
There you go. All right, Jake. Is Arkansas a football school or basketball school?
Yeah, it's a basketball school.
Okay.
I went to their nice football stadium. Crowd thought they were much louder than they were, and football team wasn't that good considering they didn't beat Texas on one of Texas's worst days.
I can't remember the last time Arkansas was good at football, like legitimately, like competing for a championship. I've seen Arkansas at least in recent
were
memory.
Decent in Sark's first year. That was like their best year the last like decade plus. It would have been what, Darren McFadden days?
Darren McFadden, Felix Jones days was the last time I remember them being like relevant on a national scale. So, all right, Jake. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode. We're going to have an immediate reaction following the 4 games we just went through, and then we'll talk about the next 4 on tomorrow's episode during that immediate reaction to these games. We'll also give a little bit of a preview and shed some light on the final Sweet 16 games on Friday night, and then going into the weekend as well. For the Elite Eight, we will continue this cycle and schedule of podcasts, giving you, immediate reactions of March Madness as March Madness continues on. I think we're in for a great weekend of basketball, really good basketball ahead of us. So if you were a little disappointed in the first weekend in rounds 1 and 2, that's a fair statement to make. Stay with it through the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, and then we'll see what your opinion is come Monday morning following that Sunday as we get the Final Four all taken care of for the following weekend. But for Jake Jimerson, I'm Tanner Carlson. You've been listening to your daily fix of all things Texas Longhorns right here on All In Horns, brought to you by Rogue Sports Network. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, hook 'em.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.